Ooh, g'day, Stu from UAVfutures here today with a fresh to death haircut. Finally, I know it's been happening a long time coming. Finally, yes, I heard you loud and clear. I got a haircut. So we can move on from that. I was getting a little bit too woolly. And number two, what we're doing today is a soldering tutorial. So whether you're coming into the hobby, whether you've got no soldering experience, or maybe you've got a little bit, you want some extra tips and tricks you might not have heard of. What we're doing today, we're going through how to solder, the very basics in terms of just a real simple, I guess, 5 or 6 different techniques that we're going to use in our hobby. Things like adding XT60 connectors, adding capacitors, soldering to pads, lengthening wires, removing pins. That's it, and it is so easy. So if you've been wanting to get into this hobby and you think, gee, I've always been a little bit scared, soldering's what's been holding me back, because I get a lot of emails like that where people, they want to get flying, but they want to know the best non-soldering kit, and my advice is soldering is super easy. Anybody can do it, especially if you follow along. And I mean, we've got some great tools now to use. Things like this. I'm going to link this down below. This is the TS100, arguably one of the best soldering irons in the biz. It's been around for ages. Mine has been used so often. And the reason why people love this one is because you can use it, at home, but also in the park, because you can run it off your drone batteries anyway, which makes it super, super easy. It heats up really quick and yeah, just all around a fantastic soldering iron. Now I'm going to link this down below. I think it's like 35 or 38 or something dollars like that. And I should say, excuse me, let me rephrase, US dollars, because I know a lot of people get upset when I use US dollars, and why, Stuart, why are you doing that? So don't worry, I heard you loud and clear. For those other people out there, I know currency conversion can be a bit of a pain. Those people in Bahrain, it's about 13.1 Bahrainian dinars. So there you go, you can go check that out. We're also going to be looking at this little bit of a soldering thing. That turned up for Calvin because he's got bad old man eyes and he wanted to know how does that actually work. So we'll be putting that through its paces. That's towards the end, you don't have to worry about that. And another, what's this, like the third point as well before we kick it off. I've got a bit of a giveaway, so shout out to Bangers. I said, hey, can we give one of these out to my subscribers? So yeah, check the official rules, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. But essentially what I want to know in the comments, what do you think about the soldering iron and how much is it in someone else's currency and where is that currency? So there we go, play a bit of a game like that. Let's find out, because I was just randomly Googling it. I've never heard of Bahrain before and Bahrainian dinars, but yeah, there you go. Let me know how much it is in that currency and whatever country it's from. But enough rambling, let's kick it off, get on with the show and go through like 5 or 6 easy techniques, the most common techniques you're going to need to use when it comes to soldering. And yeah, once you do this, you're going to be able to master any quad build that comes across. So let's do it, kick it off, go hopefully have some fun in 3, 2, 1. Okie dokie, so let's kick it off. First things first, let's look at our base little tools that we're going to be needing, because for soldering you don't really need much more than this. So of course you're going to need a soldering iron, TS100, link down below. I'm as far as I'm concerned, a lot of other people, one of the best in the biz, especially because you can take it out to the field and use it. You're going to need some solder, of course. Now look, make sure you're using 60-40, don't use any lead free. This stuff I think is much better. It's going to make your solder joints a lot easier to get used to. If it was up to me, I'd probably get 0.75 millimeters, but they happened to be out last time I was at the shop, so I'm using some 1 millimeter. Don't worry, if you go 0.75, it's just going to be that little bit easier. So other than here, Stuart, you might be thinking, what is that? You got some disgusting chewy on the bench. Nope, I'm actually using a little bit of blue tack. It feels like chewing gum, but mainly it's used to hold posters up on the wall. I don't know why this one's blue, not blue, but anyway, here it is. It comes in strips like this stuff, and it's not made for soldering iron, but it's one of the best, easiest things you can use. A little bit of a sponge, guess where that came from? The kitchen sink. So next time when my wife goes to the kitchen to have a look there, well, you're going to see I just cut that out, literally out of the kitchen. And of course I've got a little pair of pliers, so we're going to use that when we're pulling out some pins. Now what we're going to go through in this video technique, I'm going to show you how to solder up to your pads, the importance of tinning them. We're going to go through a larger pad right here, some little smaller ones, show you just how easy that is. We're going to be lengthening some wires and showing you how to connect 2 wires. We're going to also talk about soldering up to ESCs and maybe some desoldering. We have an XT60 connector because look, that's our main common battery connector, but you can apply it to other ones. Just how easy it is to solder up your XT60s. We're going to be, what was that for? That might have been for when I was going to lengthen my wires. So if you want something to go a little bit longer, or you got to do how to solder 2 wires together. And then finally, we're going to be pulling some pins out on this bad boy. I'll open this up. I can do this right now, actually. So let's do this. I had to scout around. I don't really use this flight controller, but I'll show you how to remove those pins and all that sort of stuff. Most of our, look, this might not be for everybody, but most of our components don't come with pins anymore. We're going to be taking those out. And then finally, we'll also be adding a bit of a capacitor to one of our builds or something like that as well. So I'll show you how to do that. Other than that, let's kick it off, zoom in, and the first things first, we're going to heat up our soldering iron and then get started with some pre-tinning and talk about why that is so important. And if soldering's been holding you back and that's why you haven't jumped in, don't worry, now more more than ever, and with these couple little techniques, it is going to be easy peasy to get started on your amazing, clean, fresh to death, nice and clean, solid builds. You're going to do a better job anyway than what you can probably buy in the store. Now, first things first, I like to use this blue tack to secure things down. So I'm just going to press my flight controller in right here. Now, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, of course, whatever works best for you. I'm going to plug in my TS100. So we got that right there. The other end, it is going to, now look, I cut this cord off an old printer, but I'll link some of those down below as well. The other end's going in to an XT60. And now we're ready to rock and roll with one of the best soldering irons in the biz. And I should say too, look, I don't use this all the time. So I only really use this one in the field because I mainly keep it in my bag, otherwise I'd forget it. But it's going to be interesting because I'll show you, even though this isn't my main iron, it's still super duper easy to use. Press this button, let's get cooking with, well, not with gas, with some electricity. And I know this bit's out of focus, don't worry, that's just going to heat up to like, I think it's, I don't know, it's going to heat up hot, don't touch it anyway. But let's get started with the importance of tinning. So this part's the important part, in focus. Now, always clean your iron before you start, make sure it's nice and shiny. I'm just using a bit of a wet sponge. A lot of people talk about the importance of flux and, you know, all that sort of stuff, some wire, whatever. I'm just, maybe just call me a little bit cheap. This thing's bad boy's up to 400 degrees right now. Perfect. Put a little bit of solder on the end of your soldering iron. That's going to help to transfer the heat. And then all we need to do is add a little bit to our pad. So we're going to put it on here, heat it up, and feed on our solder. Now the thing you want to do, you can notice that is, I'm going to zoom in even more actually. That's a nice shiny joint, but let me zoom in. That's a bit better. So you can see there's that shiny one I did before. Now the thing about soldering, you want to get in and out. You don't want to spend heaps of time, you know, heating your board up, heating all the components. You just want to heat up the pad that you're working on, in and out, in and out. That's what she said, but let's do it nice and quick. Again, I've cleaned this off, put a little bit of solder on there to help transfer the heat. Let's do the pad next to it. Bob's your uncle, Jane's your auntie, and then look at that, you've got two beautiful things. You can just go around and do the whole lot. It's the same whether your pad be big or small. See, lots of innuendos here. Let's see just how easy it is if you're going to be doing it. The same thing if you've got a really small little connection. You know, guess what this flight controller is? A lot of you probably haven't even seen something this old. I pulled this out of an old build. But let's say even if you've got a really small part like this, I'm giggling here. That's how easy it is. You know, those three things are ready to rock and roll at the front there. So that's the first part of tinning. And now what we need to do, let's talk about joining some wires to that. So let's say we're going to be joining the back of this wire right here. We'll pretend we've got to cut it. So we'll strip the end of this. Let's pretend it just comes like this. Make it exactly how to be for you guys. So I'm going to strip the end. You can notice there's a little bit, and silicone wire works a lot better than plastic. There's a little bit hanging, where'd I put, there it is. There's a little bit hanging out the end. We've tinned our pads. We've tinned our pads, but we also need to tin our wire. So it's the same process pretty much. A little bit on here, and then we're going to tin our wire up. Just like that. Clean that off, and then look how easy this is. Because we've got some nice fresh solder, fresh to death, like my haircut, solder on the front of these wires. Just simply rest it on the top. And then I will add just a tiny little bit more. Bob's your uncle. Check this out. Look how easy this thing is going to go together. I need to twist this actually. There we go. Bob's your uncle. Look at that joint. People say you shouldn't blow on it, but whatever. And it's nice and secure, nice and strong, just like that. So that's not going anywhere. And if you need to desolder something, I often find if you've got an old solder joint, add a little bit of solder first to something, and then it's going to be easy to take off. So let's pretend we've added a little bit of solder. I'm going to be holding this down, pulling with the other hand, and then it should be just the same process. Check that out. That's how easy it is to solder up your wires. So if you're really concerned about putting something on a pad, don't worry. The importance, it's all about pre-tinning. Put some solder on this pad first, put some solder on the wire, and then it is super easy. You can do it all day long. Just keep adding a little bit of fresh solder if you need to. You're ready to rock and roll. So it is super, super easy stuff. So we're going to put that to the side. It's exactly the same process if you want to do it even on something a little bit smaller. So what have I got here? Let's say we want to, I'm actually even just going to use my fingernails to pull off this silicone wire. There we go. Solder this bad boy up. I'd trim this down actually because it's a little bit long, so that's what I'd be doing. I'd be trimming it down, but it's the same sort of process. You put it on the end, check this out, in and out, it's done. It's ready to rock and roll. That's not going anywhere. You've got a really nice, strong, secure joint. So if you're worried about soldering to your board, the secret, it's all in the tinning and getting in and out as quickly as possible. And I do pretty much have my soldering iron cranked at about 400 degrees Celsius. Who's calling me? Hey! Calvin, you old man, what's going on?
Yeah, not much, mate.
I'm just doing a bit of some soldering action so I can check out your, what is it, that magnifying thing anyway.
Alright, you're doing a Tech Tuesday video.
Well, it's not Tuesday, so you've just put a timestamp on here. Who knows? It's Thursday today. Can I give you a buzz back later, brother?
No worries, mate.
Alright.
Catch you later.
Catch you, brother. Bye.
See ya.
Alright, so Calvin interrupting there. Where were we? I think, oh yeah, that's right. So I showed you just how easy it is to put solder onto these ones. Now moving on, the next thing we're going to talk about is an XT60. Now this one freaked a lot of people out. My first ever soldering joint on an XT60 was disastrous, and what I really need to do is build a time machine so I can go forward in time, watch how I do it in this video, then go back in time, save myself a lot of heartache. Nowadays it is super easy. What we're going to do, we're going to trim the ends like this. So we'll strip off the end, we'll tin them up as well, because that means it's going to make it nice and easy for soldering in later. So we've got our 2 wires, and like Mama always said, tin your wires. I need to clean this actually. Tin your wires up. Actually, my mama never said anything about soldering. I don't think she's even done it in her life. So there we can see, we've got 2 bits of tinned up wire. Now, this looks a bit ratty, this one, because look, I had to pull this off a bead, because I had to pull this off a build, and, well, it's been used well and truly. But all you do, fill the thing full of hot lead, and the same with the other side. A good little technique too, if you have the opposite end, so the male end, you can plug that in here at the same time, and that's going to stop any melting or these things moving around a little bit more. But I don't have that here on hand. Anyway, so here we go. We're going to hook up our negative. Here's our tinned pad from before. Here's our tinned wire from before. Our tinned little pad. Rest that on there. That's it. That's how simple it is to do an XT60. It actually takes you, I think these are probably some of the easiest joints in the biz. Takes you no time at all, and then look at that. That's, if I don't say so myself, that is a beautiful joint. That's not going anywhere. You'd slide some heat shrink over that and heat it down. I'll link some heat shrink down below as well, or heat shrink, however you want to say it. But that's it. We're ready to rock and roll on our XT60. Now moving on, the next one that might freak a couple of people out is extending some wires. So let's say you have to make your video connection wire go a little bit longer. It's not quite reaching on your build. Maybe you've got some short motors that you want to lengthen. It's a very, very similar process. So I'm going to strip my wire. So there's some exposed stuff underneath, just like this. And if I'm joining wires, I actually like them to make them a little bit longer. I feel like that makes a little bit of a better join. Clean my soldering iron. Let's add some solder, just like that. That's probably too much, actually. That's why I think the thinner solder is a little bit better. This one, I'll just hit that up again with a little bit of extra tinning. And then all we need to do is, that's why I love the blue tack. It is so much easier than like those, I wonder if I have one, those helping hands, those little alligator clips. They're not the great. I find this blue tack is super convenient. So anyway, what you do, just simply hold it nice and steady. And I gotta say, look how nice that's looking, ladies and gents. That's how easy it is to extend your wires. Of course, that's gonna break. That's gonna pull straight out the back of the camera before that breaks. Look at that. So yeah, super, super tough stuff. If you do your soldering joints like that. Hopefully that's in focus. So that's how easy it is to extend your wires. Of course, make sure you put some heat shrink over the top of that so it's not going to short out or anything like that. This is this is what I mean by heat shrink, this sort of stuff. Don't worry, that's going to be linked down below. So that's how you extend some wires. Next, what we're going to be talking about is adding a capacitor. Now this one is a little bit different because what I'm going to recommend to do, you simply sit it in, press this down. Now we're going to try and solder this bad boy up with a little bit of solder. So I haven't actually pre-tinned these ones, and there's a reason for that, because I'm going to try and do it all at once. Just add a little bit of solder all over the place. Of course, make sure your cap's around the right way. I just sort of threw this on there, but anyway. Now what we've got here, let's pretend we're going to be, I'm going to even put more solder on. So your main battery lead, let's fill this whole bad boy full of solder. And remember, this is all being powered off our LiPo battery, so super easy to use in the field, ready to rock and roll. Now I'm going to strip the ends of this, of my XT60 lead. Clip these down. Again, what are we going to say here? What do? We tin it up, because that really is the secret to this. Once you put your solder on here, you shouldn't need to add very much more when you're actually doing and connecting the join. Making sure it's nice and hot. Feeding my solder in. I do wish I got the smaller size and just wasn't impatient. That's why I feel like I've got a little bit extra hanging out the side. But here we go. Using that blue tack again, and then let's rock and roll. Make sure you're positive and negative, all that sort of stuff is the right way around. But this is a soldering tutorial, and let's do it. Okay, there's one join, and then we'll do this on. Actually, I think even more solder would be good on here. We'll get a really, really nice joint. When it comes to a big space like this, a little bit of extra solder is not going to hurt anybody. Giving it a little bit of pressure, and then look at that. What a beautiful XT60 joint with a capacitor. Now look at that, that's absolutely beautiful. And if you need to, you can simply trim these little parts off the back where your capacitor wires are sticking out. So that joint, that's not going anywhere. That's a very, very nice looking joint. It's the exact same process, whether you're going to be using it on your ESCs as well, because I know they've got some little pads. So again, what do we say? We tin it up. 1, 2, 3. You can see just how easy it is. We'd strip these wires. I wonder if I can do these cheaper ones with my fingernails. There we go. We'll add a little bit of tinning. So if you're sitting at home thinking, gee, I don't know about soldering, it freaks me out, don't worry, it's easy peasy. Look at that, we've just done one of those. So anybody can do this. It is super, super easy stuff. Now the next part we're going to talk about is if you've got a component like this receiver right here. I think this is the IA6C. It is super easy to remove these pins, but not everybody uses these. So not all your components, they might not even come with this. This is a little bit more old fashioned. First things first, we can take this off. If you can't get it off with your fingers, you can use a pair of pliers. And I've got that upside down actually. I'm going to do it the other way with the help of gravity. All we're going to do, it's very easy, in and out. You don't want to stay around too long with solder. We're going to put a little bit. So I'm going to clean my soldering iron, and this is going to be interesting because we've already got solder on there. So we're going to be trying to remove some a little bit, but we kind of do that by putting some fresh solder on our iron. I might use a little bit more. And then we simply, hopefully this is going to be in focus, simply heat it up at the base of the pin. Look at that. Your pin, that's how easy it is to take them out. So it is very, very simple stuff. So anyway, I might as well just do them all seeing I'm here. There we go. So we just removed 4 pins in like, I don't know, 20 seconds or something like that. If I was going to solder up to this, let me refocus. And now so that's better. And then of course, if I was going to solder up to this, what do we say? A bit of pre-tinning. You shouldn't be doing any soldering without any tinning. Let's just hit those pads up again, make them nice and shiny. We're ready to rock and roll, and that's it. We can solder directly up to that. That's how easy it is if you don't want to use the pins. But like I keep mentioning, this iron, the TS100 with, I guess, some tinning, making sure you tin up both sides of the joint before you actually press them together and heat it, it's going to make your life so much easier. Now look, a little bit of a bonus. Cal sent me this. Maybe your vision is what's holding you back when it comes to soldering. So I'm going to link this down below as well. This is just a super cheap little microscope where if you really need to, you can zoom right in. So you can see there's the end of my chopstick chewed quite well. Of course, I'm on the GoPro because otherwise you wouldn't see the screen it's got here. It's got a few different resolutions, all that sort of stuff. It is pretty good. You can focus it in and out, whatever you need to do for something so cheap. But if it's your vision that is holding you back, definitely, well, something like this can be pretty useful as well, especially if you are having trouble seeing. Rightio, so there it is. There's my soldering iron for the TS1. Yeah, well, we know that's a soldering iron. Stuart, there's my tips and tricks soldering with the TS100. That's a little bit better. What do you guys think? Hopefully that helped, because if you want to get into the hobby, soldering's been holding you back. Don't worry, those 5 little techniques, that's pretty much all you need to build any of these drones on the wall behind me. Super simple stuff. A little bit of practice, and in no time, you're going to be building some beautiful drones. What do you guys think? Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think about the TS100 and that giveaway too. You know, just let me know what is it in some other currency, and you know, let me know where is that country. I never even knew Bahrain was an actual place or a country, and Bahrainian dinars was their currency. But there you go. That's what you're going to learn something today to steal from JB. That's what I learned. So anyway, those rules are down below if you want to win one of those. This thing, well, look, it's okay. I wish the screen would tilt. It do get some pretty fancy magnification. So if you've got some crazy old man eyes, or, you know, soldering just isn't your thing, standing over the very top of it, you want to use this, that would be great. I wish it would tilt. That's probably my only recommendation. On that, subscribe for more FPV related content. Hopefully that helped. If it really did help you in a big way, my Patreon link's going to be there down below as well. I very much would appreciate your support. This is my full-time gig, and yeah, I can make more videos like this. But other than that, enough rambling. Subscribe for more FPV related TS100 Bahrainian Diner action, and as always, happy flying.